What is going on, my friends? Hank here, and today we're going to be painting up this beautiful P-47 from the good folks over at Tamiya. But instead of painting this up in one of the schemes included in the box, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to paint this bolt up in the markings of a ship serving with the 56th Fighter Group, the vaunted Wolfpack of the 8th Air Force. The 56th was the top scoring fighter group of the Mighty 8th during the war, produced 39 aces, and claimed over 660 victories by war's end. But the reason that we're painting up a 56th ship today is because they sported some of the most unusual camo schemes utilized by any USAAF unit. The group started the war with P-47 Razorbacks painted in the usual US olive drab scheme, but starting in February of 44, they started receiving their first Block 25 bubble top Thunderbolts. These arrived unpainted in their natural metal finish, but the boys of the 56th pretty quickly got to work making these ships their own. The three squadrons of the 56th took to painting their mounts in an RAF-style disruptive scheme using whatever paints they could get their hands on, namely leftover USAAF olive drabs and RAF paints. And the result was this fantastic rainbow of ocean gray, blue, olive drab, red, yellow, and bare metal. So let's see what we can do with our kit here. We'll get into the specifics of the colors in just a bit. We're going to start out, as always, with an all-over primer coat of black to give us a nice base to work up from. With our kit all primed up, we'll move on to our first paint color. Worth noting, we won't be getting into detail on the cockpit today, but I do have a video on the subject that you can check out right here. Now, as mentioned, these birds all arrived in the UK in their natural metal finish, so that's what we're going to do first, an all-over coat of chrome. You could use different metallics here, whatever you got on hand really. I like this Vallejo chrome because it gives a nice reflective pop with our finished product. While we've got our chrome loaded up, let's also go ahead and spray up our prop boss or our prop hub. You can see I've gone ahead and masked off the individual blades to prevent any overspray here. Alright, so we're going to do a little bit of chipping on this bird right along the wing roots where the crew would be climbing on and off the plane, so let's spray just those areas with a bit of hairspray to serve as our chipping medium. If you're new to hairspray chipping, I have a full in-depth tutorial on the process that I'll link to right here as well. Alright, we have ourselves one very shiny P-47, and yes, I do attach my wheels prior to painting sometimes. I'm a glutton for punishment, I guess. Now it's time to make our shiny P-47 a little less shiny. We're going to start out by replicating an RAF ocean gray base on the upper surfaces of our Thunderbolt. I'm using some US Navy intermediate blue here because I am an American. No, I'm just kidding. It's because I don't have any RAF ocean gray at the moment, but the intermediate blue is actually pretty close and will work well for our purposes. So now we've got our upper surfaces in blue and our belly still in our NMF. Let's load up some olive drab and start painting in our camo stripes. No real rhyme or reason to this. Individual aircraft had their own little quirks. My recommendation, as always, is to grab a reference photo and use that for some inspiration, but don't be too concerned about copying these patterns exactly. Alright, so now we've got our basic camo pattern on there. Looks pretty wacky for a US bird, huh? And at this point, we've got to start getting a little more technical. I've decided to make a P-47D belonging to the 62nd Fighter Squadron of the 56th Fighter Group from the back half of 44, early 1945. During this period, the three squadrons of the 56th all had very specific color coding in addition to this weird camo scheme. First up, all fighters of the 56th would have red noses, so I've masked off the front of our cowling here, and we're going to spray that in with some nice bright red. This goes down in an almost purplish shade over our blue camo, which is actually perfect. If you look at reference photos, that red nose behaved very similarly in real life. Now, within the 56th, each squadron was assigned a color. The 61st was red, the 62nd was yellow, and the 63rd was blue. Aircraft rudders and fuselage codes will be painted in these corresponding colors. So since we're doing a 62nd Fighter Squadron ship, yellow it is for our rudder. And while we have our yellow loaded up, let's go back to our propeller and hit those blade tips real quick. Alright, great. So before we move on to decaling, let's do a little bit of that chipping that I mentioned earlier. All I'm going to do here is reactivate our hairspray chipping fluid with a bit of tap water and start pulling that off with a stiff bristled brush to create some realistic wear around the wing roots. I'm also using this technique to pull the camo paint off the inside portions of our flap here, which is a nice little trick to save some time masking. Doesn't work for everything, but it's a good one to keep in your back pocket. Okay, we are now chipped and ready to move on to our decals. Let's spray our whole kit with a coat of gloss varnish to prepare for the next step. Through the magic of editing, I have gone ahead and decaled up our bolt. Everything you see here, with the exception of the national marks, was scrounged from my spare decals bin. And a little reminder to us all once again, never ever 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 throw out your unused decals. You never know when they're going to come in handy. One very important thing to point out here, fuselage codes. We've got different ones depending on what squadron we're working on. The 61st will be using the letters HV for the squadron code. These are painted in red. The 62nd uses letters LM. These are in yellow, as we can see here. And the 63rd uses letters UN in a very light blue or a white. And the single letter, I'm using H, is the individual ship code. You can use whatever, just match the correct color. Alright, weathering time. Let's start by spraying the whole kit with another coat of gloss to protect our work so far. And to keep things simple today, we're going to be doing a little sludge wash using some Flory dark dirt clay-based wash. If you've been following the channel, you know I've been loving this stuff lately. All we've got to do is brush some of this on here so it can flow into all of our panel lines and details, and then using a damp paper towel, we're going to start to pull off the excess. And once we're all cleaned up, all that's left behind is a little bit of the product in our panel lines to provide a nice little pop to our details. Once the whole kit has been given the necessary wash procedure and that's all dried, we can go ahead and spray the upper surfaces of our kit with a matte varnish and the lower surfaces, those bare metal parts, with our gloss varnish to help keep that shine intact. And for our final step before assembly, let's spray up our masked off canopy bits with a primer coat of black, a coat of our chrome, and then a gloss varnish to protect the paint. Okay, time to put it all together. Let's pull our masking out of the cockpit. We'll unmask our canopy parts and secure those into place. And we'll mount our final pieces. And with that, we've got ourselves a beautiful P-47 bubble top in this crazy 56th Fighter Group camo scheme. I had a blast with this one. I hope it was helpful to you guys. If you'd like to check out some more aircraft modeling tips and tricks, you can do so right here. And until next time, my friends, be well, happy building, cheers.